Seamless migration between legacy IAM systems. Oh, this is a fun one. So what you're going to see here is I actually have two versions of each slide. I have the one that, when you have a slide, you're only supposed to have a couple of key points or words on because nobody could read. And then I have that fine detailed one, which I'm not going to spend a lot of time on. The reason being that anybody that wants it, instead of having to sit there and take pictures of it all you got to do is shoot me an email, send it to you. I'm going to try to get to these over lunch and send to everybody who makes a request. It's just Todd, T-O-D-D, at IDMWORKS.com. If you send that to me, I will send it right out to you so you don't have to worry about pictures. Okay? And I'm sending them today to everybody who requests. It's just simpler that way. That way I don't forget. All right, so having said that, does anyone here think that seamless migration is a simple task? Yeah, me neither, right? But it is doable. And there are going to be a couple busts at the seams. It does happen. It's really going to be about management. And in order to do this effectively, you have to have your ducks in a row. As a matter of fact, I was just speaking with this gentleman here a second ago about that. In order for us to be able to do this effectively, we have a lot of prep work. It shouldn't take forever, but it has to be done. The first thing is, if you go and pick up a new technology, so you're going to get rid of your old legacy, whether it's a spaghetti-coded mess, or it's a vendor that's end of life, or they're going out, or they haven't kept up with the tool, what's going to happen is I buy a new tool, and I haven't done any of the prep work, things like as you'll see, requirements, communications, use cases, workflows, whatever those pieces are that you need to do to it, guess what's going to happen? You're going to buy a new technology, you're going to throw it in there, half the stuff you have now is going to break, a third of the stuff isn't going to work the way it does, or should, and everybody's going to be miserable, and they're going to point at you. And then you're going to say, it wasn't me, our product sucked that we bought. Our integrator sucked that we bought. And eventually it's going to come back to you, and you're going to be sending to that same integrator, hey, you guys got a job, or looking out there. That's the problem with it. So you have to be careful. You have to protect yourself. It's just a CYA approach, because that's really what it means when we're talking about seamless from the one system to the next. And I'll show you what I mean. All right, the shameless self-promotion slide. I don't want to spend too much time. We're actually around 150 users now. We've been around since 2004. The reason I'm showing you this is so you know they didn't just pull me in off the street, living somewhere out there. I'm going to leave it at that. Okay, told you it was going to be quick. So first, how did we get here? Right, so this is our friend, the 6 stages of IAM grief. I won't spend forever on this, but this will hopefully make a little bit of sense. We got our friend here, shock and denial, right? And you can look at the excuses. Hey, my homegrown legacy tool, it still works. You always get the one person who's saying that, right? And you go, no, your tool can't keep up because this stuff that comes from the vendors, they keep up with it. They got the army of developers. We built something 15 years ago, 10 years ago. We threw a little bit of here, a little bit of here. We like our scripting. We send the CSV. We do a delta between, ugly, ugly, ugly. Not truly automated. The thing lasts forever. Yeah, our tool can't keep up. Next, the vendor tool hasn't changed in years. That's okay, right? Because the vendor's not keeping up with it. It's time to ixnay that vendor, unfortunately. If they're not keeping up with their tool set, it says a lot about the organization and the importance of that specific tool or that line to them. Okay. Our solution's a wee bit customized. Don't worry about it. Well, we kind of hit this in the first one. We kludged this thing together, and it's a mess, right? I did that on purpose to mess with him. Sorry. It's coming back. Oop, and then I broke it. Nope. Hold on. My bad. Go ahead. Okay. Hey. I just realized we got 3 of the same tool here. Someone said I need an SSO tool, they bought one. Another group wanted one, they bought one. Another group bought one, and now at the enterprise, they're looking at another one. How many times are we going to buy the same crap? And yeah, I said crap, because when it's point and tactical, everyone does it a different way. The communication isn't out there. We got to stop that. Next up, pain and guilt. My auto provisions manual takes 3 weeks, but that's fine. No, it isn't. The pain, the guilt. We realize it's not my fault. We said this before. The implementer, this tool we bought, the implementer did a horrible job. The vendor sucks. Again, and it failed. We've tried this 4 times now, and we failed. So we're going to go through why that doesn't work. Anger and bargaining. I love this one. If I spend the next 6 months doing nothing but putting Band-Aids on this tool, I'll fix it. You get the one guy over in the engineering side who says, don't worry, I can fix it. Uh-oh, somebody leaving already? What? What? See, I told you I was going to do that. And then when that doesn't work, what happens? Well, what I really need is 12 months. And what I didn't actually put in here is the old one, well, this is your fault because I had to go fight a fire. I had to go fight the next fire, and you made me go do this. You mean your job, right? That's the thing. Eventually, what they say is, man, I hate this tool. I mean, they break. We all do. Reflection and loneliness. We have the worst implementation on the planet. Oh, gosh, this thing is a pile of crap. How's the job market out there? Because that's what happens is the next step. I can't blame the product. I can't blame the implementer anymore. We've had 4 failures. My neck is on the chopping block here, and that's the problem. But then you get the upward turn, right? They say, look, I could just buy a new tool to replace the old one. That'll fix everything, which is a horrible thing. Again, we buy the technology. We haven't defined the requirements, use cases. What are the metrics to what's in it for me? We haven't done any of that. So we go and we buy a tool, and what happens? Oh, gosh, that didn't go so well. New one's failing. Oh, they suck too. Start this process again. And then, of course, reconstruction, acceptance, and hope. I bought a new tool to replace the old one. That'll take care of it. I did it again. So I went from I can buy a tool that'll fix everything to I actually did it, and it failed, and that's what actually I was referring to. All right. And then you have the old, why do we need to migrate? What has gotten us here? This one I'm going to do super quick because, look, we kind of went over this just now, right? Products end of life, we have 4 failures, et cetera. This is the long version of it. Or, hey, this product, they have this great licensing model, the way we put it in, but if we make one minor change, the cost is more than the GDP of a small country, right? There's a couple of vendors like Voldemort, right, who shall not be named, right, that hit you with that. Do the next one, I'm going to audit you, you're going to owe me another $5 million. Well, that goes over well, doesn't it? Okay. And then, of course, management, end user, customers. They're calling your baby ugly. Like, that's not what I wanted because you didn't follow the requirements. All right. Let's move on. So what is the model of success here? How are we going to get this done? Plan, build, run. Plan, build, run. Plan, build, run. We're going to go into the details here now. The strategy of this, having an enterprise architecture, having a lot of sign-offs. If you have people who are doing manual work today and they got a process, you need to make them sign off. That's how they do the process today. Watch how fast that they go running, because nobody wants to sign off on what they actually do as their job. You know, you need to sign this. And they go, I'm not signing anything. Right? Because right now they go A, B, C, drop down to N, go back up to E, then there's a couple of asterisks because that's the people aspect of it, tribal knowledge. Then they quit, walk out the door, and those go with them. And it means also your process is wrong. People process, right? Bad process. Then you got the technology approach. I bought the technology, that'll fix everything. And do we have any vendors in here? Product vendors? Oh, okay. You might want to put your, like that for a second in your ears. Don't buy his product. Until you've done proper requirements, maybe use cases, workflows, processing, whatever those prep steps are. Clean your data, make sure your data is good. Don't buy his product. Because if you buy his product and you don't have this, you're going to put it in, you're going to run into exactly what we said. They're going to say this thing is horrible, and they're going to blame him, and he's not going to get the next year's licensing and renewals or maintenance costs, so he's not going to be happy. It hurts him too. And then if I'm your integrator, you're going to say that was your fault, and you're going to throw me out. And I'm never going to get any more work from you, let alone a reference. So it hurts me too. Hurts him, it hurts me. Don't call either one of us. Don't call me to integrate. Don't buy his product. Get this stuff done first. It doesn't take that long. Get your ducks in order, then, or in a row, whatever. Point being, get that done. Now go buy his tool. Plus, here's the other thing. If he's got 10 tools to sell you, you may not need all 10. He would love for you to buy them all. But you may only need 3. But you know what? That's good for him too. Because if he sells those 3, they go in successfully, you want to keep going with it. Now when you need the 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th, you're going to go back to him every time. And you go back to us if we're your integrator. So plan properly. We're going to go into the details again, because the whole point of this is to give the tools behind that, not just the problem. Then we want to build this thing. Once we have this stuff defined, signed off, now hand it to your engineers, do a proper build. So they don't have to guess. They don't have to say, what is it you want? And then at the end, you don't have management going, that's not what I wanted, and calling your baby ugly. So once that's done, the run mode, operational perspective here, guys. It has to go into, we've selected the tool, it's implemented, it's live. How do we keep this thing up to date? Operations has to be in proper communication, proper documentation, and then governance around that. Not just from steering committee, et cetera. That's communication. Oh, I keep doing that. That's communication, that's important. We have to keep it communicated. If they don't understand the wins, you're never going to get budget for next year's expansion. But that's not the only part. You build something, we'll go IAM, a role model, and we brought this up in a couple of sessions now. You build a role model, and now everyone who comes in gets a role, it gives them a couple of things, and you never go back to it. In 6 months, that thing's stale. People are coming in, they get IT Admin 3, and they request 4 extra one-off entitlements. Well, guess what happens there? Your role model, it's crap, it's garbage, you might as well throw it away, because you didn't do governance, upkeep, when these things come up. If I got 4 people this month that needed 3 of the following one-offs, and they're in this role, we need a new role. That's what we need. True governance means upkeep, maintenance, not just governance from a steering committee. That's important too. But we have to have the right people governing. Okay. Oh, that sounds familiar. Everybody wants to rule the world. Governance provides for success. Okay. I have this in detail. This is the fun part. This is the detailed version that you can have when you have a copy of it. Nope. Nope. Just got to ask. Nope. Not going to do it. So in order to do this plan, build, run, plan, build, run, plan, build, run model, again, that governance, you have to align that IT strategy to the business strategy. Here's the thing. Business says this is what we need. We got that. But again, we don't want to be too tactical, point solution in nature. We want to make sure that, number one, we're taking care of their needs, but also the IT side. What do we need? If we're not all together on this, we're not all in agreement, and that's enterprise requirements, enterprise scope, enterprise architecture, this thing is going to fail. And by the way, your PMO better understand this too, or PDO, or whatever you guys call it, because if they're not in the know, they're doing this one aspect of it, they're not keeping up with it. It's not going to get communicated properly. We're not going to be able to do this strategically. Next, metrics. How do I know this thing works? So I'm going to go provisioning for a second. Auto provisioning, we want to put in a solution because right now, the requirement, and came up in a few sessions now, is I need my auto provisioning, my onboarding of users to be quicker because it takes 4 friggin' weeks to do it now. And everybody's not happy about that. There's time loss, license costs, all kinds of problems to get the proper access. We need to get that down to 4 hours or 4 minutes. Well, here's the thing. If that's not the requirement, how do we track it? How do we prove to management, IT, anybody, that we got it down from 4 weeks to 4 minutes or 4 hours? So write your requirements properly with metrics behind them that you can now test and track to. Because it's not going to be seamless if you do this and the whole thing can't show any results. It looks pretty, right? Assess the risk. What happens if we don't do these things? What's the cost of doing nothing? It stays at 4 weeks. Or if we don't do the proper requirements, guess what? I can't prove to you that it did anything. So make sure the executives understand and support it, and then make sure you're presenting from a communications approach to the right people, boards, committees, et cetera. We're going to get into some more nitty-gritty here in a second. This is the long version of it. So we've got to start with a plan. This is really basically going to be about a 3-stage approach to get this thing done right. First and foremost, we said this. If the scope is not done correctly, guess what? Nobody knows what the hell's going on. We've had customers, I had one, oh my gosh, had to be 2 weeks ago. The person who's sort of the director level that's responsible for making sure the big picture is understood in the environment left. And here's the problem with that. Nobody understands the big picture, and they've got 4 technologies. They've got a virtual directory. Actually, it's more than 4 now. They got a virtual directory. They have a new multi-factor vendor because they're getting rid of their old multi-factor. They have a federation, that includes cloud, SSO, and IDaaS vendor, a brand new provisioning tool, because what's happened is they didn't do upkeep on their old tool. So everyone's like, this thing's a piece of crap, and they're throwing that vendor out after a few years, getting rid of the legacy one. But hey, Seamless, we want to be seamless. And oh, it's a spaghetti-coated mess. But it's 4 different things, 4 different aspects altogether within IAM. So here's the problem. Nobody has the big picture. So we got to talk to them, and that's their big complaint is, we don't know what the hell's going on here. These guys are doing their piece, they're doing their piece, they're doing their piece, but we don't get what it's going to look like at the end of the day. You have to have that scope defined. You have to then be able to communicate it. So we talked proper requirements. I'm not going to bug you on that one. Use cases and workflows. Again, if you don't have these defined, you go to the engineers, they're going to do their best guess effort, and they're going to miss things. That has to flow into an enterprise architecture. And in order to do that, you may have to say time, money, resources. You got to get over that hump. For the enterprise architects in the room, pretend those don't exist. We know you don't have enough time, you don't have enough people, you don't have enough resources. Pretend they don't exist. Build what this thing needs to look like ideal. Because that's what's going to be used to get the budget. Now they can pick and choose the proper pieces, the organization, the management, the guys who ought to make those from the business rules and say, here's what you can do, here's the money. You have to get them on board. You have to be able to show that big picture. That's the enterprise architecture, the end state. And if you have to, run a gap analysis. Hey, here's how we're doing it today. We wanted to, say, pick auto provisioning. Here's how we're doing it today, complete with all the issues. Here's from that enterprise architecture ideal state. And if we do this, here's all the requirements this thing mitigates. People forget this because we tend to be more too on the tech side and we don't think about that aspect of it. If we can't map this thing across, you're never going to show your business side and your management that this thing actually has value. What are the requirements I'm going to mitigate? Okay. Build a programmatic flow. Don't boil the ocean. We don't want to do the kitchen sink approach. Rip and replace is very difficult in a lot of orgs when they've got these kludge spaghetti-coated messes or they've just done a poor job of it. Don't be afraid to go the next step and say, look, framework, well, first getting our ducks in a row, that's going to take 3 months. We're going to call that phase 0. Framework is the first step. So for example, phase 1 will say is 6 months. What can I get done in 6 months? We picked on auto provisioning. I can get my HR and my non-employees into this new auto provisioning tool, just like the old one does. We're going to build a service catalog for people who need to make self-service access requests, sort of like how we do the old one. It's less paper-driven. It's more dynamic now in nature. And now what are the systems I can get done in phase 1? Well, everyone's got AD. Everyone's got email. Everyone needs a service desk profile, and maybe there's 3 other applications we have to make sure we get right off the bat. Now, phase 2, the next 6 months, everything that does AD, authentication, and authorization. There's 100 apps that do that. And then the next phase, the ones that only do authentication against AD, but not authorization, require something to be created on the back end. Phase it properly, build a programmatic flow. Now every 6 months, if you're doing 6 months, you can show wins to your management. Dev to test to prod. And in order to do that, you got to do the next piece, the breakdown schedule, work breakdown schedule. You have to be able to say, 1, here are the constraints and dependencies that have to be covered. Number 2, that may be, we have to have a tool, maybe. Number 2, how do I get from dev to test to prod? High level. What are the steps, or whatever your model is? That may include things such as HA and DR. Make sure you cover these things. Number 3, what are the resources required? Well, in phase 1, it's 100% PM, but after that, the next phases, we think about a 20%. Full-time engineer, in the first phase, a full-time architect, in the second one, a half-time or quarter-time, testers, et cetera. Define those resources. Now, get an internal and external number. If you have internal folks versus external, you'll be able to budget this thing down to the penny. Hopefully, you put a variance of at least 20% because phase gate reviews, steering committees, et cetera. Last piece of that is, though, what are the deliverables? Define those. And I don't just mean this thing's got to go live, that's a milestone. I don't mean that. I mean, hey, we need a design doc, architecture doc, test plan, communication plan, cutover plan, rollback plan, run book, admin guide. If you don't have all these things defined up front, good luck doing it after the fact. All right, that's the detailed version of everything I just said. All right, now let's build. We're almost there. Proper infrastructure. This can't be said anymore, guys. Too many organizations we go to, they don't have a segregated environment. Yeah, we do dev. Some of the stuff just goes straight off of production. It's on the same network, right? How many times have you seen that one? Or, we're going to go cheap on the test or stage environment. We're going to go cheap on the test. It doesn't have to match exactly. That's great till you go to production. But you know what? If you got DR and HA, high availability DR requirements, and you don't have that also in test, you got to put this thing like, you can't be certain it's going to work correctly. Now, It's not a one-size-fits-all in that regard, but the point being that if that test stage doesn't match your prod, you go to prod and you can't figure out why you got to use that rollback plan we just talked about, because the whole damn thing broke, because we couldn't do proper testing. We thought we could, but we couldn't. And they need to be segregated environments. If they're not, well, here's the lovely part of that. How many folks here have, you get this great, process where people with accounts, they have to change their password every 90 days, and, we get rid of those accounts if they haven't logged in, except we don't do that for dev, which is on the same network. We don't do that for test or stage, which is on the same network. So there's all these test accounts that are sitting out there. Well, guess what that is? Wide open risk for you guys. Okay, allow for adequate testing. You will not have a seamless process here if you shortchange your testing. Too many orgs are like, we got a little slack in this. Just knock the 1 month of testing down to 2 weeks and then knock it down to 1 week. And you don't get the proper testing. Here's the other part of that too. You don't know who the testers are. You don't have a proper test plan, so last minute, that's going to be the PM. PM's going to do the testing, etc. Have proper testing plan, people, procedures built. Run proper testing, UAT, etc. And then track and manage the build, right? What we're talking about here is we have to understand from that scope, what is that strategy? How are we going to do this? Are we going to do agile method, a waterfall approach? Do we want to do these little sprints where after we get the framework in, we want to every month show that we can roll something out? And then, of course, control for this, guys. Not just risk management, but document control. So here's the long version you can have a copy of. We're almost there. Last piece of that puzzle, run. So we did governance, then we did plan, then we build. Run, but not away. This is big. And this is sort of the fun part. If we've done this correctly, we got our ducks in a row. We did proper requirements, use case, all that stuff, planning, test plans, communications. You're still not going to have perfection going live. There's always these little things. So here's what I can tell you is a little bit on the lessons learned side. Number one, properly make sure your operations guys can take this thing over. Too many times they get a call. This thing's live. We didn't really get a chance to go over anything. We didn't do any kind of review or training, but you guys need to take care of it. And what happens? The help desk gets 8,000 calls immediately. Or hell, we didn't do our requirements right. Or we didn't do our testing right. And now 8,000 people got locked out of their system for a change we made. I can't tell you how many times I've seen that. Not so seamless after all. And then heads roll. We locked out our customer base. Ooh, not good. Here's the other piece. Anytime you put any of these tools in, plan for, and this one is I don't see very few organizations doing this at this point. We try to push it. Stability and support. People are like, well, as soon as it's live, it goes over to ops. It can't. If this is a project, these are not simple tools to implement. What you need to do is have a post with your implementer or team, a post go live stability and support. If it's something really complicated, that may be 4 weeks. If it's not, that may be a week or 2. And what I mean is this. How many folks, I'm going to go pick on auto provisioning if you have it. You put it in, it goes live, 1 or 2 small things got missed. Something got misspelled, something needs to be updated. Just hopefully not too many, but it may still be a laundry list. You're going to have this laundry list. Here's what happens. Your implementer, if they didn't count on that, or your team if they didn't, I'm going to go with implementer, hit you with a change order. Better to have this thing in your statement of work up front because the last thing your business wants to hear are the words CO, change order. Nobody likes that. It's the worst thing ever. So if you're building these, plan on, depending on the complexity of the product, anywhere from a 1 to typically maybe 4 week stability period. Have these guys ready so that they can make quick changes that can be promoted, tested quick and changed. And I don't mean the heavy stuff. I'm talking the tweaks. Everybody seems to have tweaks. Plan for that ahead of time. Put it in your budget, project plan, etc. If you don't need it, all the better. But I have yet to go to a place that hasn't needed it in some way, shape, or form. And then the last piece of that is, guys, lessons learned. Postmortem. What worked, what didn't? Especially if this is a program. Your PMO is going to appreciate it, and maybe they're the guys running it. Your engineers hopefully will appreciate it. Your architect should appreciate it. Because if we're not constantly learning what works and don't work, we can't tweak our own process. All right. This is the detailed version, of course. And then the last slide, maintaining IAM momentum. So it's a top-down and a bottom-up approach, and what's funny is I kind of have them reversed, but basically you have to be able to show results first. You're going to execute on this. You have to be able to show those what's in it for me. How do you do that? You're matching against these metrics. Our provisioning went down to 4 minutes. Check that out. It was 4 weeks before. Be able to show the results, be able to report them. This starts with the project level. The project's going to start by reporting. Here's the aspects of the project here where we're hitting things. Hopefully you have a good PM that doesn't just keep your project, if you go green, yellow, red, green, until disaster strikes and it goes right to red and you're like, what are you talking about? This thing's been green the whole time. Or it's still green, but we have a stop in the project because we have these 7 issues that have stopped the whole thing. So hopefully your PMs are good. Similar to business analysts, they're undervalued. You find a good one, you keep them. Get rid of the rest, keep revolving until you get the good ones. And then keep them, whatever it takes. Okay, next, be able from a programmatic point of view. This is a program, this has to scroll up. Project goes in the program. Program needs to be able to communicate because that's going to go out to management, it's going to go to stakeholders, it's also going to go out to everybody. Here's how we are, here's what's coming up, here's the next thing. Next, operational level. If it goes into operations, these guys have to be able to continue to show metrics to show this thing's still working. If our process went from 4 minutes, we got it to 12 minutes, to 2 weeks, we got us a problem. They need to be sending out metrics, the operations folks, that support this, and that may be weekly, monthly, whatever the magic is. And it should be all in a strategic dashboard so that at the end of the day, management can see it, upper management, everyone can see it, and then it can flow back in reverse if, guess what, from the strategic management now says, this has been great, we're doing an M&A, I want to be able to take the next company, bring them into their system, they got 50 apps that I want to be able to bring in and all of their users, and here's what we got to do, guys, we want the budget for it, let's get this thing done, and now they're pushing in reverse. And you're getting your budget in your next sets of orders because you showed the success. All right, very, very, very last thing. Todd, T-O-D-D, at IDMWORKS.com. If you send me an email, I will send you the big version with all that extraneous stuff as well. Do we have any questions? I know we didn't get into fine-tuned detailing, but we can't. IAM is like 25, 30. I mean, there's all these different work streams. If you get a chance, or have seen one of mine where I put the jellyfish up, where it's all these different work streams, segregation of duties, privileged account management, credential management, single sign-on, federation, cloud SSO, IDaaS, SIM, DLP, access controls, RBAC, ABAC, PBAC, etc. There's so many aspects of this. That's why we can't go into such fine-grained detail in a 25-minute session. But let me know if you want to go into detail, and I'll show you exactly how we tackle this. Show you our methodology. You could do it over WebEx. Give me like an hour on a WebEx. I'll show you how we deliver, what we deliver. And you still don't have to use us. It may just be educational, and you can see, oh, I like that, I'm going to start using those things. All right. If there's no questions, or, oh, we got a question back there. Sorry, the lights, I can't see. Yeah. Thank you. You know, it's funny when it comes to company culture, one of the things that tends to drive business our way is there are organizations that have very capable people, but because of the company culture, nobody wants to hear from them. Nobody wants to accept what they're saying. So they end up saying, hey, IDMWORKS or whomever, come on in. We need a third-party perspective. We need somebody to come in and basically, they're hopefully reinforcing that aspect of it. And then you guys will end up driving it because you're going to force the change. But it only works if we have a hammer. That hammer has to be whoever those stakeholders are. They need to be able to go and say, you heard. I'll give you this a weird example, but it worked at an org. Went to an organization, this has got to be all of 10 years ago. We're having troubles at the PM level. A PM there and couldn't get any traction. And we went to their stakeholder. And we'd only been 2 weeks, but our statement of work said they got 5 environments. We need our accounts for my team in all 5 of those environments pretty much from the get-go, because it's a very quick hit type process. We didn't have them. 2 weeks are sitting around. Well, first, I destroyed my PM. Which never should have taken 2 weeks, but then we got their stakeholder, and we went in and said, look, I got to give you a $100,000 change order, or $50,000, or whatever it was. And the guy's like, you can't do that. You just got here 2 weeks ago. I said, right, but you guys never set it up. Go look at your SAL. And he's like, whoa, we can't do this. I said, I'll make you a deal. Back me up. Get the 5 guys who need to create in each environment in a room right now. It was Friday. I came in on Friday. It's like 4 p.m. We go in the room. I look at the first guy. Said, listen, where are our accounts? It's been 2 weeks. And the guy goes, Yeah, I'll do it Monday. I got to go pick up my kid. I said, no, you're going to go do it now. You're going to create all the accounts. You're going to come back up. We're going to test them. Then you can go pick up your kid. And he looked at the stakeholder guy, and the stakeholder guy, fortunately, the hammer, because I couldn't force this, goes, you heard him. And he went and he did it. I went to the next guy. Same thing. Guy says, listen, I really can't. I got a thing. I said, I don't care. Go do this. Guy behind said, you heard him. Went to the third. I said, do I have to say anything? No. The other three went. They did their job. They came back. We got it. And the reason, and the thing was, I didn't have any power. We had to put a little bit of the fear of God in them. You have to have that hammer because your culture can't change without it. It has to be, this is this, and if you don't, there's going to be consequences. Now that's, a very specific example, but there has to be consequences behind it. I got 3 kids. I brought 2 of them this year to this thing. And if you were here last year, you probably saw him on the panel. He was the big, wise-ass kid. He was making everybody laugh. Anyways, if I said to one of them, and this was when I was a kid, when they were little kids, I said, you need to go do this or you need to stop doing that behavior. And if they didn't, I had to eventually back it up, right? If I kept saying, well, you better do it next time, that doesn't work. So in this particular case, with these guys, I said, do it or I'm taking your most favorite possession, which in this case was his little video game thing. And I'm taking it and I'm not giving it back to you for 2 weeks. They didn't believe me till I did it. And I took it. And for 2 weeks, can I have it back? I'm like, 2 weeks is not up. Put it up on a high shelf, you couldn't get it. 2 weeks is not up. Sounds like it's cruel, but guess what? I never had to do it again. And now when I go back to him, it's till this day. And that was when he was little. He's like 15 now. If he's not doing what he's supposed to, I just look at him. I go, do you know it's done? I've never had to do it again. I just look at him. So the point being that you can change people. It's a behavioral thing, but you have to be able to have that hammer, and you have to stick to it. False threats. It doesn't have to be the end-all, be-all, Armageddon, but you have to have that hammer, and if you don't, you will never change that culture. Do we have any other questions? All right. You don't have to be as animated as me, all right? I got a lot of caffeine in me. All right. Thank you guys very much. I appreciate it.